Good evening, friends, those who came here and also those who are joining us on the internet. As Michelle said, we are going to start today with a series that will explore how the theosophical teachings explain the origin and constitution of the cosmos, and therefore of human beings also, because as we are going to see, in the theosophical approach, human beings are a reflection of the cosmos. Probably during the 4 next series, each series is a month of different talks. So for the next 4 series, we are going to explore the basic topics that we can find in theosophical literature, like Theosophy 101, so to say, to have a general idea of the theosophical view of the universe, the theosophical model. You know, there are different traditions and all of them propose a particular model of the universe. And this model has a particular intention behind, a message. We are going to talk about this a little today. But so for you to have an idea of what we are going to do, the next series we will discuss about the evolutionary view of human beings and the cosmos itself. So we are going to discuss how does theosophy see the development, for example, of human beings. Is there evolution? Is there an intelligent design? That means a creator that generates certain entities or beings with a particular plan in mind? Is it something that is in between? Then we are going to discuss also what is the purpose of evolution, what is that, or how we can live so that we can go in tune with the process of evolution. So we are going to explore things like reincarnation, karma, what happens after we die. And then also we are going to explore the spiritual path in itself, different practices, the theosophical idea of the adepts and the path of discipleship. So we hope to explore the basic subjects, not in too much depth, because that would take a long time, but just to give you the flavor of it. It will be, I think, deep enough, but yes.
These 4 weeks you're talking about?
No, in 4 series of 1 month, 1 month, yeah.
This will take us into
next year, yeah. So no, for these 4 weeks, as Michelle said, we are going to, this is an introduction, then from chaos to cosmos, then the cyclic model of the universe and 7 dimensions in cosmos and self. So as you see, there is a very complex model of the universe and human beings that was provided in the theosophical literature. Now, where does it come from? Is it a philosophy? A philosophy in the sense of what we understand now as a philosophy. For example, we have this French philosopher Descartes, the one that said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. How did he get to his philosophy? Well, he just asked himself, what is it that I can know for sure that is true, that I cannot deny, that nobody can deny? For example, is this chair true? Are you out there real? Maybe I'm dreaming. How do I know if I'm dreaming right now or if you are there? Or is my body real? Maybe, again, I'm dreaming my body. So with the process of inquiry, he got to the basic thing that for him was an undeniable truth. That is, whatever is out there, I'm sure that I exist Because I'm thinking. If I'm thinking, that means that I exist. I cannot deny that. If I don't exist, then I couldn't be thinking. And from that point, he developed a whole theory or philosophy. So his philosophy is the outcome of his reason, his thinking powers, and his particular analysis of reality. So we have different views. We have, to name another philosopher, Kant, the German philosopher, and he also describes how the constitution of our mind and perception and how it works. And all these things come out of a process of reasoning, probably with intuition playing a part there also, but mainly it's a process of thought, of thinking. Is theosophy something like that? Well, according to the people that brought forth the theosophical teachings, these are not teachings that come out of a process of reasoning. In fact, the very word theosophy means divine wisdom, not human wisdom, not intellectual wisdom, divine wisdom. So these people claim that there is a higher means of knowledge, higher than our mind, that is beyond what we call our personalities, and that has to do with the divine, and that we all have the possibility of reaching that state of divine wisdom. This is not only the people who founded the Theosophical Society, it's not only said by them. There is a long history of mystics in humanity, and they all say more or less the same. They say there is a way to perceive the spiritual realities which is not necessarily through the power of reasoning. It's not the outcome of the power of reasoning. So many mystics in different cultures, at different times, with completely different backgrounds, religious and philosophical backgrounds, have come to this idea, or this experience rather, of the divine. So is theosophy a kind of mysticism? Well, in a sense it is, but I would say it's a particular form of mysticism. Because most mystics, religious mystics, let us call them, are mainly interested in getting in touch with the divine. In some religions they would say become one with the divine. In some other religions they would say, well, the divine is always transcendent, but we can get to certain kind of union with the divine. So, for example, to mention in the Western tradition, a book that is an icon in Christian mysticism, The Cloud of Unknowing. This is a book, we don't know who wrote it, but the book is basically an instruction for us to know or to learn how to perceive God or the divine. So these mystics, they are not concerned about talking about the universe, why we are here, how are there angels, hierarchy of angels or not. They are only concerned with how do we get to perceive the divine. So they will say, for example, in this book, he will say, the author, just forget your memories, leave behind your thoughts, plunge into this state of silence and darkness, dwell there, and eventually you will perceive God. Now, since this is not something easy to do because our mind keeps thinking and remembering, then he adds some more teachings. Well, if you have a lot of desires, you are not going to be able to enter into this state. So he teaches about, a more simpler life, more austere, and all the teachings are around the experience of getting in touch with the divine. In theosophy, we have these kind of teachings. Actually, in the modern theosophical approach, by modern I mean the the approach that started with those who founded the Theosophical Society, because theosophy is a word that was used by different traditions before the Theosophical Society. So in the modern theosophical approach, the perception of this unity, of this divine life, is the first step for a person to be considered a real theosophist. Theosophist not in the sense of member of the Theosophical Society. Theosophist in the sense of a person that has access to the divine wisdom. So the perception of unity is the first experience, the first step in the theosophical life, so to say. So in theosophy there is there are these teachings about perceiving the divine. But also, the theosophical teachings bring all these aspects, what we could call maybe metaphysical teachings, teachings about what is beyond the physical, and a description of the universe, the laws of the universe, not only physical but moral, spiritual, the description of the constitution of human beings. So it's not only mysticism in the sense of perceiving the divine and as a way to be one with the divine, but we have all these metaphysical teachings also. This is a feature that was shared by other theosophical movements, as I mentioned, like the Christian mystics, Christian theosophers, that began with Jacob Boehme, or like earlier, we are talking about the 1600s, or earlier at the beginning of the Christian era, the Neoplatonists. They all had this mystic view, this mystic experience, but also they were interested in providing a model of the universe. So why does theosophy do that? The idea is that there are several ways to get to this vision of the divine. For example, if a person can surrender his or her ego completely, then there will be a perception or an experience of the divine. Because the idea is that the ego is a false image of what we are that is in the way to perceive what is real. So any person that can really surrender, let go the idea that he or she is a personality, would perceive the divine. Now, it is really difficult to get to this kind of surrender, especially in our times, maybe in the past where people were simpler, intellectually, where their lives was simpler, maybe there was more innocence, and maybe it was easier for them to have this genuine surrender. Nowadays, it seems a little more difficult, although there are people who go through that path. Another path, for example, is just to focus your mind completely on the divine in a state of meditation, for example, to such an extent that your mind stops its process completely on all the layers, conscious and unconscious activity, and then there is this experience of the divine, which is our real self. Now, for that you need to get away from our regular life. That means that you have to live in retreat and be the whole day trying to focus with the exclusion of everything else on the divine. So again, this path is kind of difficult for us today, which we are so much stimulated at the mental level, intellectual level. This is the opposite to stimulation. The people who follow this path, they try to make less and less the stimulation of the senses, of all the senses, because they try to get to this place of complete inactivity at the mental level, only the concentration. And there are several different paths. The theosophical approach, the theosophical path, which is also present in other traditions, is not something exclusive, is based more on understanding, on developing a deep understanding. The idea is that one of the main problems is that we don't know who we are. We don't know what the world really is. We are in a state of spiritual ignorance, and therefore we act based on a wrong idea of how things are. If we can correct that idea, then maybe we can perceive what is true. I say maybe in the sense that this is not just a question of changing an idea, one idea for another. It's something deeper, and we are going to see it. But basically speaking, the idea is to develop a deep understanding. You know, theosophy, as I said, is divine wisdom. It's not divine love. It's not divine will. It's divine wisdom. That shows you that this approach is based on understanding. For example, Blavatsky, the teachers that Blavatsky had are frequently called the masters of wisdom, not the masters of compassion. In Buddhism, compassion is a big word. It's not that, you know, a master of wisdom doesn't have compassion or love or the power of will. Of course, an enlightened person has all these qualities. But the fact that we call them masters of wisdom, you can see what the approach in the theosophical approach is. What is the emphasis? So the emphasis is in producing a deep understanding, which I think is good for many people at this time where our culture is very much information-based. And although information is by no means the same as wisdom, but you know, we are very intellectual or mentally oriented culture. Not that we are really intelligent. We are clever. If we were intelligent, we wouldn't be destroying the planet, for example. We would have found a way to live in the planet without just burning the ship we are, you know, going in. But anyway, we are very clever, and maybe this can appeal some people in a group of people in humanity. Now, when we are talking about understanding, the ideas are just the first step. Ideas are not enough. Truth is beyond any kind of ideas. We can have a very good description of truth, and that doesn't mean that we know truth. For example, if a kid, a boy or a girl that is in first grade, he can be taught and he can study and understand at the level of words very well the process of having a kid, you know, conceiving a new life. And he could explain everything, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. So in the same way, we can explain how the universe is created, but we don't necessarily know what we are talking about. So what this means is that models and ideas may be very helpful, but they are very limited. They are helpful if we know what their role is. So the idea with the theosophical teachings is that they provide a particular view of the universe, which is supposed to help us live in the right way, so that we can develop the ability to perceive by ourselves the spiritual realities. Because, for example, how do we know that what theosophy says is right? Let's suppose, okay, theosophy describes that there is life after death. How do we know this is right? Do we have to take it just by authority? Because somebody said it and, well, I read it, what do I do with that? Well, in part yes, and in part no. A large amount of knowledge that we have is just based on authority. For example, even very simple things. How many of you know that you have bees and that there is a queen? How many of you know that bees create honey? By knowing, I mean, have you worked with the bees? Have you seen that there is a queen? Have you seen how they create honey? Or somebody told you, a book, the TV, your parents. How many of you really know? Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's a story that they put out there. But how many of you know that the atom exists? The DNA? All these things. How much of our knowledge is direct knowledge? Most of it, we just trust what the scientists say or whoever says it. They say there is a cosmos out there. I don't know. I wasn't in a rocket, and saw it by myself. Of course, we accept many things on authority. And it's something rational. I think, if we try to live only by what we perceive, then our universe would be very limited. Now, we say, well, I don't know what the DNA is, but I could know. If I want, I could become a scientist and see it by myself. Yes, that's true. There is a training that you have to undergo, and there is a possibility for you to work with the DNA and for you to see that the DNA exists. But if you don't do it, it's a knowledge that comes through authority. The theosophical knowledge is very similar in that aspect. There are some people that say, this is what happens after death. Now, we don't know because we are not trained to be able to perceive this. These people, they say, you can be trained. You can learn or you can develop the skill to see by yourself what happens after death. And many people around the world, since the beginnings of humanity, have given some testimony that there is a life after death in different traditions, different religions. So there is a group of people that they say, I'm talking because I know, just like the scientist. He's talking because he knows. Of course, that knowledge can be limited, not necessarily exactly right, but as any other knowledge, there may be some truth there. And in the same way that we can become a scientist and develop the skills and knowledge to be a scientist, we can develop the skills and knowledge to be able to verify the things that are there in theosophy. Now, there is a problem. Scientists work with the skills and faculties that are given to us as humanity. We all have senses. We all have our mind and the power of reasoning. So we just have to apply it to a particular field, science. Now, to discover these things, we need to develop faculties that are in all of us, but in most of us are latent. We can perceive the spiritual planes, the spiritual realm, but first we have to develop the ability to perceive it. So that is what makes more difficult for people to be able to verify the things that come through spiritual philosophies or religions. So you see, when you have something like the theosophical teachings, how do we relate to them? Well, in part we say this is something that was written by people who say that they have a direct knowledge of it. And you have to be aware that you don't. So then we can take those teachings and see if that model could help us lead life in a better way, whatever you think better is. Here is not even important if something is conceptually true, because what is important is the effect that produces. For example, there is a Buddhist sutra where there were some kids in a house and the house was burning and the kids didn't realize it, and they were playing inside the house, and their parent came and saw that, and he thought, if I say that the house is burning, they won't understand what is going on and they won't come out. So he said something like, hey kids, come, I have a very nice presents here and I have candies, come get them. And the kids ran out of the house and he saved the kids. by telling something that is not necessarily true, but it produced the right result. So even if the things are, this is my particular view, even if certain things are not, it's not relevant if something is true or not, as long as that produces the right attitude in myself. So for example, let's say maybe there is no reincarnation. But if I think that there is reincarnation and that there is a purpose in life and that what happens to me is a result of things that I did in the past and that I should be a good person now because in the future I will reap the consequences of what I do here, if that makes me lead my life in a more responsible way, then sure, why wouldn't I believe that there is reincarnation? If that makes me be a better person, I will die, I will see, oh no, there is no reincarnation. But I was a good person anyway. So, or the other way around, if thinking that there is reincarnation, I say, oh, okay, whatever, I have many lives to do this, I don't like to do this now, I'll do it next life. So somebody comes and says, no, this is your only chance. If you don't do it now, you are screwed. So maybe then I die and I see that there is reincarnation. But if that particular approach helped me be more responsible, then that's fine. So my view of these teachings is that they may be true, they may be symbolic, they may not resemble truth, but if they have a positive effect and they give me a model that I can really grow, through which I can really grow, then I will see by myself. At some point I will be able to see by myself, and then I will see what was real or not. So we are going to explore what the theosophical teachings have to say about the cosmos, about ourselves, about the laws of the universe, and see how they can help us live in certain ways. You may agree on them or you may not. That's, from the very start, that is something that is part of the theosophical approach. It is more important, let's suppose there is a person that is that believes in a God, in a view of God that for us it could be childish. Let's suppose this person believes that God is a real man that is out there sitting in a flying chair. But that idea gives this person certain inspiration to be good. Maybe this person doesn't have a very deep mind. So if you try to teach an idea of God that is more abstract, for this person would be like, God doesn't exist. What do you mean that God is everywhere? Nobody can be everywhere. So if you destroy that idea of God, maybe you are destroying the only source of inspiration for that person. So, it's really tricky. Each person should be able to go through life and to see life as deep as that person can, but with the view that will inspire that person to live in the right way. And as we grow, we will discover, this view that I had is not necessarily true, and we will come to, a deeper view, which again will not be truth. It may be closer to truth, maybe, but at some point, we will see, this view that I thought it was so great, and now I think, is limited, and we will come to probably a deeper view. So it doesn't matter where we are. What matters is that if we are sincere, honest, and we try to work with what we have, that very honesty and that very earnestness will take us to a deeper and deeper understanding. So during all this series, I will present the theosophical model. I will try to point out how these things have helped me to, organize my life in a way that seems right to me, and how I in my personal life, I strive to live in that way, because one thing is to have a vision, and a different thing is to be able to live that vision. So the fact that we are talking about, different ideals doesn't mean that just because we have the ideal, we are the ideal. But we are going to see all this model and how that helps us living in a way that we can consider is the right way. And then, as I said, the idea is that each one of us has to try to take a rational approach to this, not just blind belief. This is not just a question of changing an idea for another one, because what Theosophy says is that as you work on this and try to get to a deeper understanding of what you have there, little by little, you may go beyond any ideas. Little by little, you may awaken in yourself this ability to perceive something beyond any concept. We call it spiritual intuition. The word intuition means something like inner knowledge, and it is applied in different ways in different philosophies. For example, but usually the connotation is that it is a knowledge that wasn't gained through thinking. So, for example, in regular philosophy, we would say that my knowledge that there is a chair there is an intuitive knowledge. Because I didn't think, I didn't make an inference. For example, if I don't see the chair and I see one of you sitting, but I cannot see the chair, I can infer that there is a chair there. That would be an intellectual knowledge. If I see the chair, I see it. There is no thinking in between. So that is an intuitive knowledge. But it's a sensorial knowledge, intuitive in that sense. In Theosophy, when we talk about intuition, we usually talk about this spiritual intuition, a knowledge that is beyond our minds and that can give us some glimpses of the spiritual reality in a way that is not produced by our process of thinking. So that is the idea, that is part of what we have to develop, the skill to get more and more this knowledge. Now, this knowledge doesn't necessarily come as a vision or as a word that we hear or something like that. Usually this intuitive knowledge is more integral, and it comes just as a feeling. For example, a person may lose the fear of death. It's not that the person had a vision of what is after death or something like that. But after working with all that and sincerely thinking and studying and watching himself and life, little by little there is this intuition, this feeling, yeah, this is true. There is nothing to be afraid of, for example. So that would be an intuitive knowledge. Not, as I said, not necessarily a vision, not a concept. It's just that we know it. How do we know it? I don't know. I just know it. I feel it. It's part of my life. So all these teachings can be little by little sensed or verified to a certain extent by this kind of intuitive feeling. Of course, the very high metaphysical knowledge or teachings will be difficult for us to verify. But since in Theosophy we always say the small mirrors what is big, then we can see in ourselves the reflection of all these things that happen in the universe. And as we do this, we will see that our perspective of life may change. And as we change that perspective of life, our actions may change. Because that is the basic underlying idea. The right action will come after right understanding. Again, here, the right action may come out of love. A person that has, a very impersonal love will do the right thing just out of love. Or the right action may come out of different things. one of the sources of the right action is the right understanding. So in theosophy, that is usually the approach. A right understanding of what we are and what we are not, what life is about and what life is not about, will produce the right action. And that is mainly the will be the aim in all this series, to try to provide some elements so that we can have this perspective. And then you will be able, if you are interested in this particular ideas and teachings, to go deeper into them. So that's more or less what I wanted to share as an introduction. Now, as usual, we can open up to comments or questions or little discussion.
You know, I is this working?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it? Okay.
You know, I think the way to approach any subject or new subject especially is with a perspective of, I don't know. Because if you come from a perspective that you already know, or or it contradicts something you know, then there's no space for intuition to work or for new knowledge to come in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is. I think that is one of the bases of the ability to learn. There is a difference. I think that is very important, and in the theosophical approach, is always very, very important. When the Theosophical Society was founded, the first president that we had said in his inaugural address, he said, "We are students, not teachers." And although sometimes we have to take on that role, it's just a role. Like now I'm sharing certain ideas. But in my personal life, I'm just a student in the sense that I'm just trying to see, to perceive, to learn what is this about. I may have all these ideas. You know, it's very easy to acquire ideas. But if we are sincere, that's why I put emphasis in the limitation of knowledge. We don't have to fool ourselves that just because we have certain knowledge, we know. Again, the knowledge is like a hint, or the finger that is pointing out to certain direction. We can take that knowledge and look at that direction and see what we see, or we can look at the knowledge and just stay there, and we are just looking at the finger that is pointing to the moon, for example, instead of looking at the moon. So this idea of I don't know is very important. And then there is a complementary attitude. I don't know, let's see how much I can find out by myself. So we get some knowledge from somebody that says he or she knows. I examine that, and then I see how much I can see from it or about it. But if we already come with a model, our personal model, and it's very rigid, then there is no point or there is no way we can modify it.
So then there has to be really a constant process of, I had the words, evolving, that nothing is permanent. So it's a process of different steps that are taken, like the divine intelligence. We reach a certain point, but there is more to go, so we have to let go of the old picture and be open to anything that evolves. Mm-hmm. It's not, otherwise one is stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that should be that is a natural attitude if you are aware that knowledge is limited. That's why I usually try to mention this, because if you think that acquiring knowledge is to know, to really know, then you may be trapped, in generating your own ideas, and once you have them, then you cling to it. And anybody that says something different, you will fight them, because this is what you know. Now, if you are aware that knowledge is limited, then you don't care about your knowledge. I mean, this knowledge right now is helpful for me, but I'm always looking for what is behind, because I know that this is limited. So if we have that attitude, we have to be open to find something else. Now, somebody comes and says something, or an author or a book, it's not that I have to just take it because somebody said it. We have the right and also the duty, so to say, to examine that, but with an open mind. So if you say, well, this doesn't make sense to me for the time being, okay, don't reject it, in a very strong way, but put it aside. I don't know about that, I don't see it. Or you may say, oh, this makes sense, or this shows me something, and then you can incorporate it. And maybe later you have to deny it. But if you are aware, really aware that knowledge is limited, then you are always trying to see, what is behind.
How do we come to trust our intuition?
Again, this question in different ways always come up. How do we know that what we know is true, or that we have an intuition and not is something else? I particularly am very pragmatic in the sense of what are the results of this idea. So if a particular view helps me face life in a way that I regard, is a good way, then I take it. I don't question it in the sense of how do I know this is true or not, because I know that it's not true in the real sense. I know that it is limited. So, but if that idea or knowledge or intuition helps me deal with life in the right way, then I take it for the time being. And you keep working, and then at some point you may start seeing that there is something that doesn't fit there. For example, let's say, okay, we have the idea that there is good karma and bad karma. If I do something good, I will receive something good. So for the time, that may be something perfect for me. I start doing good things because I want to get good things. And I take it. Now, if we keep trying to understand things, then to go deeper, then we may discover that after all, if I do good things to gain something that is good, I'm still trapped in this idea that I am this entity that gets good things or bad things. And yes, I get some good things, but also I get some bad things. And when I get the bad things, I don't like it. So I begin to see, well, actually, maybe I should try to live in a way that I'm beyond good, beyond that entity that gets good things and bad things. So I may begin to discover that actually it doesn't matter if I get something good or bad. What matters is if I can be in that state that can experience good and bad with poise. So I stop doing good things to get something good. And I start trying to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So just a quick example of how something can evolve, a view can evolve if we are sincere from something that was useful at some point, but as I grew, as I became more mature and my understanding deepened, I begin to see, yeah, it was good, but it actually is different. So we develop a new vision. And then that new vision, again, will probably fall, and a deeper vision will arise. So I don't question in that sense whether something is true or not. you know. Of course, from certain other point of view, we are always questioning if something is true or not, but not in that way.
Does this go along with this? I have a question. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Okay, because this will take us off.
Mine did go on.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll squeeze it in. What if our intuition goes against what our intelligent mind is telling us, or what we perceive reality to be at the time? So it's a contradiction of you're at odds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, you know, our minds are not necessarily wise. Sometimes, you know, they are, but many times they are not. And what we call intuition sometimes is just desire, it's not intuition. So I don't know any recipe, you know, to discern this. But usually, to me, what tells me what is closer to truth is life itself. With this attitude, what are the consequences of this attitude? So when I see that you know, something, that my attitude is not adequate, I try to see, okay, where am I wrong? Where is my perception wrong? Whether it was what my mind said or my intuition or my desires, I say, okay, this attitude is not, with this attitude, I'm not responding in the right way. So where is the mistake? You know, we are all different, and I'm a scientist, so maybe that's very familiar for me, that way of working. Some other people may not work in that way. So each one of us are different, and what I say may not be the way that, you know, you work. But I work very much in this way. You know, if something is not working, I want to see why it's not working. So I just try to discover a new view that allows me to face this in the right way. That may take a long time. You know, it's not just that it's not a question that you are doing math and then you find the solution and that's it. You know, and we have to struggle for a new vision. Most of the time, when we don't know what to do, it's because the right thing is beyond what we can perceive. So when we face this, we face darkness. We have no idea. But trying to push it, you know, trying to think about it, at some point it comes, the answer comes. And some point, again, can be a long time, not necessarily. But it's more or less as how science also works. You know, scientists, they do experiments, they have a set of data, and then they have to figure out how to put that into a model, into a story. You know, they have to invent a story that explains those data, that data. So you think and say, okay, maybe this is happening. And then you compare and you say, well, but if this were happening, then these results don't fit with that story. So you have to throw that away and think a different story. And at some point, you get it. You know, again, it may be limited.
Sometimes the seemingly wrong story turns out to be the eventual right story.
Because your data wasn't complete or wasn't right.
You know,
But yeah, it's the way it is. But my point is that if we can do that with, you know, if we can face the uncertainty in science, or when solving a puzzle, when, you know, playing with a game that is a puzzle, if we can face the uncertainty of not knowing, and we see that after some struggle we know, we can apply exactly the same to life. Of course, it's more difficult to face the uncertainty of not knowing how to face certain situations, but it works the same. If we can hold the uncertainty, eventually we can figure something out.
We have a bunch of questions
Okay.
here. So, a book titled The Unity of the Universe by D.W. Skyama. In it, he seems to argue from a physicist's viewpoint that the universe is a complete monolithic organism and not composed of unique, unrelated, and discrete elements, and that whatever happens is one part of it affects the whole. Is that the concept in agreement with the Masters and HPB?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think science is at a stage, the development of science is at a stage where we can affirm that, at least for the time being, with a real scientific basis. We know that everything is interrelated, and if the universal constants would change just a little bit, the whole universe could fall apart. So that is what some scientists have seen. And yes, that is part of the theosophical view, but the theosophical view, I think, goes even further, because we are talking about here in this view, which I agree with, but we are talking about different things that are interrelated, interconnected. Blavatsky, when Blavatsky says that the universe, when she talks about the unity of the universe, she says, by unity, I don't mean like an army. An army, you have all different soldiers, but they work like a unity. She says, I mean the universe is one single being, not different parts interrelated. It's one single being, not many beings. So the inner relationship is how unity manifests on this plane where we are seemingly separate. So that's how unity shows on this plane. But if we go deeper in our perception, we will see that actually there are no parts. There is only one being. Of course, this again is for us an idea. But people who have perceived that unity, they all say, it's not that there are different parts. There is only one being. So I don't know if science can go deeper than that, because this perception of the universe being one being belongs to a plane that is beyond the physical. At the physical level, we are separate. You know, my body is separate from his. But we are related at many levels. So,
Not really.
no, related not necessarily psychologically, but the air that he's breathing, you know, is connected to mine, related in that way, physical, at the physical level. You know, that's what I mean. Not necessarily related psychologically speaking. Is that what you were thinking about?
I'm saying physically, you know,
Wait a second.
we have this air between us. We tend to ignore the fact that the air is connecting us physically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, physically there's not space. There's air between us.
Yeah, and that's why I can hear you.
Huh?
And that's why I can hear you,
Yeah,
because
right.
you are affecting.
Right, so it's not like we're separate in even the physical
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, yeah. That is my point. What I mean, we are separate, is in the sense that apparently we are separate. You
In our
know.
minds
Yeah.
we're separate.
Yeah. No. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. No. That was it.
All right, now, thanks.
Okay. So here we have a comment and a question that when I begin to find knowledge and truth within myself, I often feel like a baby who has begun to exercise his motor skills and all too often hits himself in the face. Perhaps this arises from my inexperience on the spiritual path, but it no doubt can be discouraging for any young neophyte. Can you give your testimony about the eventual discovery of our true self, our true power, our true faculties and positions related to the cosmos? Will we really reach illumination, or whatever you would call it?
If it is personal testimony, unfortunately I can't. I'm trying to get there, just like every one of us. And but I do believe that is possible. I mean, if we take the last, enlightenment or illumination as the last step, well, for us, for most of us at least, it's like part of a philosophy. It's an idea. But we all have seen how we can break through our limitations, the closer limitations that we have. We probably all have the experience of having seen something in a new way, of having led behind. So the same process can be repeated. You know, there is no reason why the same process could not be repeated. So I really think that is a reality. Now, again, to me, for example, let's suppose the Buddha comes as he came, or Jesus, or whoever, and says the truth to us. You know, they did that. They say, I know the truth, listen to me, you have to do this, or love yourself and your neighbor in the same way. So we know the truth. Now, it doesn't help us just knowing the truth because somebody said it. So to me, it is more important, knowing the truth is important, but it is more important that we have our own perception, even if it is not true, and that we work on that and discover whether it is true or not, than just to say what somebody said, even if that was the truth. So my point is, we have to trust in our perception, not because it is the ultimate truth, but because it is our only truth. And it is more valuable, even if it is not the ultimate truth, it is more valuable for me to be consistent with my perception than to repeat somebody else's truth. Because in the aspects that this perception is not true, I will discover it. You know, I will discover how this is not true, and then it will be mine. So I think wherever we are, we have to trust our perceptions, and we have to distrust our perceptions. Distrust in the sense that we know they are limited. But for the time being, work based on your perception and try to see beyond.